Today I thought I would try a little bit of a twist on the basic three-card spread. We all have seen three-card spreads. There's so many. They're so versatile. I like them a lot. We use them in our classes a lot because you can be a lot of different things. It can be past, present, future. It could be, cause and effect. It can be all kinds of things. But there's one. Today I'm using this Shadowland Tarot, which is one of my favorite decks. I really love this. We're still very much in the shadow time of the year that we're coming out. This book I like so much, this deck I like so much because, first of all, I like the cards. The cards are just a scream. They're a hoot. The illustrations in these cards are just, they're fantastic. The idea about the deck is we're, we all have these shadow sides of ourselves, these monsters, let's say, and they're depicted in here in Monster, but they're depicted in a humorous way. They're humorous. The pictures of the monsters they're exaggerated, they're cartoonish, they're fun. They're fun. They're not scary monsters, They're monsters that you love. And that's the idea, is to, your shadow side of yourself is the side of you love. You have to love your shadow side as much as you love your non-shadow side. That's the idea, is when you're doing shadow work, is to come to terms with your shadow self and accept it and deal with it and see what you can do about it. Okay. Well, this is in the book, in the user book, which is a lovely book. I've showed this in the past. I haven't used this deck too much on YouTube because the illustrations were a little hard to show up on camera. I don't know how well you can see the illustrations, but I have a little better camera and I have a little better lighting, so we'll see if this works. I hope it does. But anyway, it's a good reading. Okay, and you can use any kind of a deck for this reading. But this is a transition three-card spread, which I thought was really interesting. An interesting reading, because she says this is Monica, what's her name? Monica Podursky is the author here, and she suggests that this is a good spread to use for major transitions in your life. Well, I'm not necessarily having a major transition in my life right now, but trust me, we've all had major transitions in our lives since March of 2020, and it's continuing. We're continuing. Our normal is being redefined all the time. So, a transition, I'm very much in transition. I've been in transition for a while. I'm not sure when it's going to stop, but it'll help me be aware of this. According to Monica, this is going to help me become, to see the changes that I need to be aware of and to get some advice about the changes. Starting first here with the card on the left, which is describing a major change you have just undergone that has affected your decisions. That's what she says. Okay, the first card on the left describes a major change you have just undergone that has affected your decisions. Okay, well that's it's almost a no-brainer if we're going to talk about it that we've gone through. But I want to see what the book has to say about this. The King of Cups, of course, is always really, a positive card in many readings. It's a very positive card. But remember here we're talking about a transition. What kind of a transition? Okay. And here her depiction of the King of Cups, he's taking this leisurely stroll along the ocean side, enjoying his free time, very much lost in thought. And I love her depiction of that. The little, well, I'm not sure what that is, in its shell, with all the little, I don't know what it is, squid of some kind, or I don't know what it is. Okay. So he's really in his head. And it's about being introspective. It's about being, thinking things through. But of course, the shadowy side is maybe being cold, or maybe being manipulative, or maybe being, tactless or whatever. Anyway, she describes him as a person who has learned how to balance both his intellect and his emotion. Okay. And that is one thing that is a lesson that I've having to come to grips with. Okay. Whether I balance my own intellect and my emotion. And one of the points that she brings out in here, when in her description, it's a pretty long description, which I won't go into too much, but it's just by stepping back and looking at what has happened in the past, stepping back, being a little bit being in the thought like the King of Cups here is in this card, to try to be more objective, okay? And it says it's encouraging me to be patient with things that have come up. And also it says, here was one of the warnings, try not to be too detached from your own life that you are cut off from others, and instead spend time being emotionally available. Well, that is one thing that I am coming out of. I was a very, very social person before March of 2020, very much involved with a lot of group activity, a lot of social activity, a lot of activity. I had groups in my groups. Like I had so many people, things going on, and a lot of, I just saw a lot of people, and I was in a lot of places all the time. And then when 2020 hit, yeah, I did have this transition where I was isolated like everybody else. We were quarantined, right? And I really got into my head. I really became adjusted to being alone. Even though I'm here with my husband, I had adjusted from being emotionally unavailable for people that I knew. I no longer had, relationships. I did not keep in touch with many people. I kept in touch with very few people. Of course, my family, a few friends, but not very good with friends. It took a while to come back and to try to get back into friends. I really did shut myself off. So this is one of the places that I might be transitioning from, because now we're starting to come back out. Now we're starting to come back out into being around other people. I'm starting to see other people, which I have not seen in a long time. I'm starting to try to be in more social situations where I can go out of the house more. But what does that mean for me? How is that going to be defined compared to where I came from? Okay. So we came out of this change in the balance between my emotion, between my head and my heart, or my emotions and my what was going on with my head, what was going on in my heart, what was going on for me personally, what was going on for me as I relate to others. Okay, so that was kind of interesting. And it leads me to the place where I am now in this middle card, which is the middle card is indicating where this first transition led. Here I am. And what I must face to move forward. Well, look how interesting that is. It's the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is all about getting a perspective. It's all about, taking some time out. Maybe just suspending everything, suspending the action right now, just to maybe, see things from a different viewpoint. That's really from a different point of view. See things from a different place. I'm very much in a different place when I was here before March 2020. Of course, very much in a different place now. But it's not just about seeing things from this place now of coming out of my isolation for me. This is interesting because if you look at the reflections in her guidebook here, she says, so I take the time to see situations from all perspectives. What do I need to look at things differently? Okay. What am I willing to sacrifice for a new point of view? I find this very interesting for me because doing this, especially if we're coming from this area of my life where we had this change, this transition, coming to here where I was isolated and I was pulling myself away from friends and a lot of acquaintances and social situations. What has happened to me in here, not just that I became a little more isolated, a little more less communicative, less social, etc., where other people, I want to point out, were quite able to continue to be very social. But I found myself not wanting to answer text messages, not wanting to go on Facebook, not wanting to, answer my phone, of course, not wanting to even read email. I didn't want anything to do with it. I was very content to be here. Very content to be here. Okay. But also what was happening a lot of times, I find that I'm not as easily understood as I used to be. I don't think that I'm as understood. I don't think people see situations quite the same that I see. I've had some situations where I think, am I crazy? Why did somebody think this, or why would somebody react in a certain way to something I said or something I did or didn't do or whatever? Very quick to just a very different situation, and I have been chalking that up to the fact that I always do better in personal relationships than in. I don't do good communicating on the telephone or communicating in texts or emails, or I find it very cumbersome. I like to talk to somebody face to face, which is perhaps why I like to do YouTube, because even though I don't see you, I can communicate my thoughts because I see my face and I think you can see my face, and I pretend to see your face. So I feel like I'm talking to you one-on-one, just like you think I'm talking to you. I think that too. That's the way I'm most comfortable. But the challenge here with this card. It's not just a reflection or an excuse of why things are like they are. It is seeing something from a different perspective. Changing where I am now in my situation by stopping and putting aside that perspective that I had and coming up with another viewpoint. Perhaps the people's viewpoint that I am not communicating with like I should be. What are they thinking when I do not answer a text right away? What are they thinking when I don't reach out to them with a phone call or with a text or something like that? What do they think? What do my friends think? What does my family think? What do they think is the reason? You know, I even do, this is personal information, but we do Marco Polo with our family. And I really love to watch everybody's Marco Polo, but I don't find myself posting very often on Marco Polo. I just watch, because I don't think I'm doing anything interesting enough to post. But I have to stop and look from their perspective. What do they think about why I'm not posting? They don't know that. They might think that I'm not posting because I don't care enough to share, that I don't want to let them into my life, that they don't miss me as much as I miss them. This is looking at it from another person's perspective. Okay? And finally, the last card in this reading, I'm trying to keep this really brief, is the third card. Indicates the transition that I still need to move through to achieve a goal. Here I have the Five of Wands, which is very interesting to me because it's almost right away I'm looking, well, isn't this what I was talking about? We're into some kind of a struggle here, but it's mostly some kind of a competition. There's some kind of a competition going on. Maybe there's some kind of tension, or there's some kind of conflicts. It's not measured, but it's there. It's there, and it might be something that's happening over and over and over. And I'm really feeling that. I'm feeling that this is where I am at the edge. I'm right here at the edge between these cards, and this is what's happening a lot in my life. I feel like I'm not really fighting with everybody or arguing with anybody, but I feel that the possibility is there if I speak up. If I speak up because I'm a little frustrated by some of the decisions going on around me and some of the things that's happening, and I'm not having I'm not involved in it, even though it affects me, and it's really kind of unnerving. It's really been bothering me. It's causing a lot of frustration. Okay, but it says here to first of all to just be a little bit easier, because we see here, compared to the Hangman situation, of course, first of all, it's a Wands. It's a minor arcana card. So this is not a long-lasting problem. It's something that's going to pass. So I just have to sort of ride this out a little bit, number one. Okay. But also, it urges me to consider the role and responsibility I have in that conflict. Because if I am remaining silent and I'm not speaking up, well, of course, then I'm going to be frustrated when things don't go my way, because I have not said anything. Am I too stuck here in the position of just hiding out and hanging out and just seeing things, being in my head here where I was in the past? Am I still there that I'm not speaking up and trying to resolve this conflict? Am I avoiding healthy and spirited conversations for fear that I might get angry or that people might not like what I have to say? This is not something that I've really suffered with from the past. I never really had any trouble expressing my opinion in the past. and, bending fences and not having arguments. I didn't have a problem with arguments. This is something that's sort of coming out of this separating myself and maybe I'm just out of practice. Maybe I'm so much in my head that I'm out of practice. Okay. How do I feel about, it's asking me how I feel about problem solving. Well, a lot of opinions is a good thing, is a healthy thing. And I say that all the time. You even hear me say it, that your way might not be the same as mine, but you're welcome to do it your way. Your way is just as valid as mine. That's true in other people's decisions that they make. Their decisions may just be as valid as mine. Is maybe different. Okay. So I really like this. This is a really kind of cool transition here. It says in a healthy competition, which I love that. First of all, it says, remember that a variety of opinions and points of view are healthy and can be equally heard and respected. There does not need to be a designated winner or loser in group rallies or passionate discussions. Well, that's absolutely there. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely correct. And I see that, and I know that, and I understand that completely. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we can't get along. And I think, just not me, but I think the whole world right now has kind of been suffering through that very problem, especially here in the United States. Here we've had a lot of issues with that, with our state of politics and a lot of other things going on. Even now, hard dealing with COVID and everything else. We've just had a real trouble. We're we're putting lines in the sand everywhere where there shouldn't have been any. People can disagree in some things. I don't think there's much disagreement to be had according to public health issues, but other than that, or safety issues. But other than that, we should disagree. It's healthy to disagree a little bit, to have different viewpoints and different opinions. Okay, so as a 3-card spread, I really, really like this a lot. It's a little different. It's not past, present, future so much, but because we're not defining past, present, future, even though that is sort of what we're doing, it is the relationship between the three. It is the movement between the three that is so valuable in this spread. And one of the reasons I like this is because when I'm reading any kind of a tarot spread, it is how the cards relate to each other that is important. It's not the separate cards. It's how they relate. And this is a very obvious example of that. How did I get here? How did I get here? I got here this way. How do I get here? I got there this way. I got there this way. Okay. Very cool card. I like it a lot. I like the deck. And I like the deck a lot. I'm going to be using it now at least through March. I think I'm going to be using this deck a good bit through March. And as long as we're still here in the shadow. Anyway, one thing I might be coming up and showing you, I have an issue here. I've said it before with the gilding in these cards. First of all, they're just hard. They're impossible for me to shuffle almost. I have to divide them up and shuffle them. It's very hard. But the gilding on the edge of these cards, even though it may look very pretty to you, may look very lovely, it hurts my hands. It just hurts my hands. It hurts. So I'm decided I think I'm going to remove that gilding. I'm going to try to do it very carefully so that I don't sacrifice much of the artwork, because the artwork on these cards is just so charming. So charming. Okay. But I'm going to try. I saw somebody else removed gilding off of cards, and a couple of people actually. I've seen them do it. And also, it is getting a little bit chipped from usage. It's not that pretty. It doesn't stay nice. So, it doesn't have to be there for me. So, we'll see. That'll be a future video. Okay. I hope this was an enjoyable spread for you. Give it a try. 3 cards. Doesn't take long. But remember, it is the transition from one through the next to the next that counts in this reading. Okay. I'm Rebecca, the Good Wife, and I thank you so much for watching. I wish you blessings.